Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have this man back. Of course, it's Professor Alan Dershowitz. That Alan Dershowitz, the famed attorney who claims he's 86. I'm thinking 56. Professor, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm doing great. Thanks. Appreciate it. Looking forward to 4 years of strength, good, positive American foreign policy, support for Israel, and support for American values. Let's hope it all turns out as well as it could.
I think it certainly has the potential, and I hope that you're right about that. I talked to Ruthie Bloom, who's a reporter from Tel Aviv yesterday, from Israel, and she said that they were celebrating in Israel when the win happened. But for Professor, I guess you're probably not surprised. You've got the far left in Israel too, who is still like, yeah, but we'd rather really have her, I think. But why are people confused, do you think? Clearly, Middle East peace happens under a strong leadership in the United States. Clearly, weakness in the United States means the Middle East is in turmoil. Why is that anybody would take the other side?
Well, you go back to the Psalms of David. The good Lord will make Israel strong. Only then will there be peace. We've learned the lesson that there can be peace in the Middle East only if there is a strong Israel supported by a strong America with a strong alliance between the two. And there's every expectation that the Trump administration will produce that. They just named Mike Huckabee to be the ambassador to Israel.
Amazing.
Going to be great. I know him very well. He is fantastic. He's smart. He's funny. He gets along with everybody. And, he loves Israel. So I've offered him Hebrew lessons. And we'll see if he takes me up on it. But he'll be a great choice. So far, I think all the choices that the president has made, Elise Stefanik is great. Stefanik is great at the United Nations.
Yeah.
I have offered my help in an informal way to advise the president or any of his appointees on anti-Semitism, the Middle East, any of the issues that I have been writing about for the last 50 years.
Go to dersh.substack.com. Check out the Dersh Show over on Rumble. It is Professor Alan Dershowitz. What do you make of the tactic by the Harris campaign to try to straddle the line? Well, the Palestinians should have control of their own destiny, and Israel should have a ceasefire, but they can defend themselves. When I talk to people in Israel, and you probably had the same experience, they say the term ceasefire is disgusting to them because that doesn't mean that you win anything. You just stop.
What it means is go back to the situation on October 6th. There was a ceasefire October 6, 2023, and look what happened. Israel has accepted ceasefires repeatedly, and the other side has violated the ceasefire. So a ceasefire only means allowing Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran to rearm and get ready for the next battle. So, of course, Israel shouldn't accept a ceasefire. It should do what it has to do to get the hostages out. But it should be ready to be attacked and ready to counterattack. I'm hoping that if Iran does attack Israel again, that finally the United States will say to Israel, all right, you're free to attack Iran's nuclear reactors, its oil supplies, and really bring it to the ground. Because, Iran without nuclear is a paper tiger.
Yes.
Their defenses have been destroyed. Hezbollah has been crippled. Hamas has been crippled. And the road to peace in the Middle East is through Tehran. If there is regime change in Iran and the Iranian people can finally have a democracy, most Iranians are pro-American and many are pro-Israel. It's just the mullahs and the Revolutionary Guard capture them the way Hamas captured the citizens of Gaza and turned them into human shields.
Yeah, if we look at videos and pictures from the 70s, you're spot on. You've got women in bikinis, families enjoying themselves out on the beach. Iran was more of a Western culture, at least Westernized, even under the Shah, who wasn't great, but he was a lot better than a theology or theocracy. So, yeah, I would love to see the people of Iran get empowered, but they weren't empowered under Obama nor under Biden-Harris because they want to appease, and appeasement's never worked. It's Alan Dershowitz. Latest book is called War on Woke, Why the New McCarthyism is More Dangerous Than the Old, and I want you to go and get that right now. Let's talk about what we just saw happen on Tuesday. You're a traditional, I would call you a blue dog Democrat. That's not an insult. I think you're more of a guy who is conscientious about how you feel about things. The left has left you. The Democrat Party has left you. Liberalism has left you. Did you find yourself without a home? I mean, can I ask you who you voted for? I mean, are you a guy who leans right now, or are you still the same guy?
You can ask me, but I won't tell you. To endorse publicly either candidate because I didn't feel comfortable telling other people how how to vote. I have left the Democratic Party. I no longer can be in a party that promotes Bernie Sanders and Liz Warren and AOC and the Squad. I can't be identified with that party, but I'm not a Republican. So I am an independent, a centrist independent, libertarian, a civil libertarian. I want smaller government. I want more liberty. I want more, consistency with the Constitution. I don't want identity politics. I don't want DEI. I don't want race-based affirmative action. So I'm not part of the left, that's for sure. But, it's interesting. I've never been part of that left. But as Ronald Reagan said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me.
Yeah, exactly right. It's Alan Dershowitz. Go get this book, War on Woke, Why the New McCarthyism is More Dangerous Than the Old. Let's talk about, go ahead. Yeah, show it, please. There it is.
Book just out this week. It's called The 10 Big Anti-Israel Lies and How to Respond to Them with Truth. And it's available. It's really a pamphlet. It's available for just a couple of bucks on Amazon. And I'm sending it free to 1 million college students all over the country at 1,000 universities, so that they can respond to these violent anti-American people who are trying to bring down America. You see what they did on Veterans Day at Columbia?
I did not.
At Columbia, they refused to celebrate American veterans. Instead, they celebrated Hamas veterans, including Sinwar, who died as martyrs. This is what an American university had happen on its campus on Veterans Day. I love veterans. Every time I see a veteran, I salute them. I praise them. Tragically, too many of them are on the streets. I give them money every time I see them. The idea of not celebrating American veterans and instead celebrating a terrorist like Nasrallah, who was responsible for the death of over 200 American Marines in Lebanon, the idea of a university doing that just shows how universities have been turned from educational institutions to propaganda mills.
Well, how do you get it to 1 million people? Do you tell them I'm sending it to you, or did they ask for it?
Well, we're asking Hillels and Chabads and Federalist Society, Christians for Israel, any group that wants a book, just write to me and I'll send you 500 copies, 200 copies. I'm going to Penn this week. I'm bringing a couple of 100 copies. I'm going to Yale. I'm going to Harvard. I'm trying to promote the answer to these lies in as many places as we possibly can.
So the 10 biggest anti-Israel lies, that book is out now. It's more of a pamphlet. Go and get it. It's something, I can't wait to read it because you know how I feel about Israel. It's the promised land. I asked you this last time, but I wonder if you could opine on it again. How is it that otherwise smart individuals that go to these universities and these Ivy League places, these very, very expensive places, how can they be so easily indoctrinated to believe something that's patently false? You don't celebrate a terrorist when he dies as a martyr. You celebrate that he's rotting in hell. How do they not know that?
Well, you're overrating intelligence. Let's remember in the 30s and early 1940s, the Nazis were very popular at Oxford University, at Cambridge University. Nazis marched down the street in New York proclaiming that Hitler deserved the Nobel Prize for Peace. Gertrude Stein nominated him for a Nobel Prize. If people could support Hitler, they'll support anything. Others, when I was growing up, young people were supporting Stalin. They were Stalinists at my university. And so it's not surprising to me that some of these young people have become the new version of Hitler Youth. I'm not talking about what happened in the Holocaust. I'm talking about what happened in the 1930s,
right,
when they kept Jews from going to universities, when they blocked entrance, when they protested professors who were Jewish. That's what happened in University of Munich and Heidelberg and Berlin. It's happening at Harvard and Princeton and Yale today.
It's stunning to me. Maybe I am over-exaggerating or overemphasizing what we call intelligence today. Maybe book smart isn't very smart otherwise. It's Alan Dershowitz, the famed attorney. Go and check out the Dersh Show. Dersh.substack.com is his Substack. Go get his books, the 10 biggest anti-Israel lies and also War on Woke. Let's talk about the Trump cases quickly. I'll just start knocking them off. Jack Smith packing up his boxes and leaving and basically saying, let's just drop everything. Does that prove, Professor, that this was always about lawfare and it was always about a political enemy?
Absolutely. But he's going to get his revenge because he's going to try to issue a report which will be very critical of Trump. Now, the question is, will he do it in time to get the Democrat Attorney General to release it publicly, or will he wait? And of course, the Republican Attorney General won't release it because the reports are not released by the special counsel. They're released by the Attorney General. So, yes, of course it proves it. But you don't need proof. Look at the New York case. The New York case, there's a conviction. Yesterday, today, the judge, Marchand, who's not really a judge, he's a prosecutor in robes, but he put it off for a week. And I think he may put it off more and more so that the stigma continues to attach. There is nothing to that case. In 60 years of practicing, teaching, and writing about criminal law, I don't understand the case against him in New York. I couldn't describe it to a class full of Harvard students.
That speaks volumes, Professor. I had Rudy Giuliani on last week, and he said that to have a case where you don't have to have a unanimous decision, just 4 can find him guilty on this, 4 can find him guilty on something else, 4 on something else, we'll call it unanimous. He said it's the first time since the Magna Carta that they've ever done anything like that. This case has so many problems. If you were advising Marchand, and I'm not asking you to, but if you were advising this so-called judge, wouldn't it be advisable to say, we're going to go ahead and dismiss the case? There were a lot of issues. We don't think that the Court of Appeals will take it or will keep it on standing. Let's just make it go away now. Doesn't he save face by doing it? By postponing it, what is he doing?
Well, he's trying to keep the stigma. If it's postponed, if he says, look, we're not going to let you appeal, we're not going to sentence you until after your 4 years are up, I think he should take a mandamus to the Court of Appeals, Trump should, and insist on being able to appeal this case. Look, the best thing would be for him to just dismiss it outright. He can blame it on the Supreme Court. He can say the Supreme Court has said that you can't have a conviction that's based on conversations that occurred while the defendant was president of the United States, and some of the conversations in this case did occur. So that would be the smart way out, but Marchand is not known to be so smart.
It is Alan Dershowitz. Go to dersh.substack.com. Get all of his books. Go check them out anywhere you get great books. One last thing on that case. The way it was brought, the jury instructions alone, you've told me, others have told me, that should be the end of the case, how bad the jury instructions were. Were you in the actual courtroom when he gave those instructions?
No, I was in the courtroom a couple of days before that when he behaved like the character in the movie who said, "You looking at me? You looking at me? Hey, you talking to me?"
Crazy.
He just behaved like a character out of a bad movie. He was so injudicious. There was a lawyer who was testifying, and the lawyer looked at him. I looked at him too. I was in the courtroom because he was making ruling after ruling, and the judge said, "You're looking at me?"
Wow.
To hold him in contempt. This guy's not a judge. This guy is a prosecutor in robes who had a predetermined goal, and he still has that goal, but he now can't achieve it. So we'll see whether he does the right thing, just dismisses the case, or just tries to hold it in abeyance.
Can the Trump team try to get rid of him or throw out the case because he's donated to Biden? I think it was only $15, but he's donated to Biden, and we were in the middle of a presidential campaign at that point.
They tried, but no, they can't do that. But what they can do is appeal. And if he won't let them appeal, if he says, "I'm not going to sentence you," and, in the New York law, you can't appeal until it's a sentence, they can take an extraordinary writ and say, we have to have a right to appeal this because the president of the United States shouldn't have the stigma of a jury verdict against him for 4 years. And I think he'd win that.
It is Alan Dershowitz. We've got to ask quickly about Atlanta. That one appears to be that it's going to be dismissed, I guess, without prejudice, and then they can another DA can bring the case again, who probably never would. I guess the judge in that case should have thrown it out because of the sordid details that were involved there, no?
More than that, the judge should have recommended criminal prosecution of the prosecutor and her boyfriend. They committed, in my opinion, such obvious perjury in front of the court. They denied that their relationship began at a time when there's all kinds of evidence, including cell phone evidence, that they had a relationship that pre-existed. So there ought to be a prosecution in that case, not of Donald Trump, but of the prosecutors.
Well, they also found out that they lied about not meeting with the Biden administration because her boyfriend charged 2 or 3 days, and when he went and visited the White House and met with the DOJ or with somebody at the White House, so they lied about that as well. I mean, that whole thing is fraught with just garbage. Again, lawfare, no?
Lawfare, it won't last. I don't think any one of the cases against Trump will survive scrutiny or survive appeal. And I think possibly these cases helped Trump get elected. I think the American public was sick and tired of the use of lawfare. And I'm hoping that Trump will declare, talking about a ceasefire, declare a ceasefire. And I think a smart thing to do would be for him on the same day to pardon Hunter Biden and to say, look, Biden would never have been prosecuted for these crimes if his name weren't Biden. People don't get prosecuted for falsely stating that they had a drug problem on a gun license generally. And at the same time, he ought to pardon all the January 6th nonviolent offenders, including I have a client who was a law student who went in there to protest, didn't do any harm. I think declaring a kind of ceasefire and saying, let's put an end to this lawfare on all sides would be a great, great move forward for all Americans.
I think you just broke news. That was an amazing thing. Pardon Hunter Biden, pardon the January 6th nonviolent people, and let's move on as a country. It's Alan Dershowitz. Get his books, The Top 10 Anti-Israel Lies. That's out now. Also get War on Woke. One last question about the Letitia James thing. First of all, as a New Yorker like I am, and when you see Letitia James, who's supposed to be the top cop, the top, law enforcement person in the state, coming out and making some weird statement about how she won't be defeated and she won't be beaten and nobody's above the law and this is going to continue. She just seemed to be unhinged. But that case she has is ridiculous from the word go, is it not?
Not only that, but she's above the law. Normally, you can sue people for making statements like that, but district attorneys and attorneys general have immunity. So when people say no one's above the law, they don't look in the mirror. Congressmen are above the law, senators are above the law, and the Supreme Court just said that presidents have to have the same immunity that other lower-ranking officials have, such as members of the Senate and judges. That's all they said. It was not a radical decision. I want to see Letitia James give up her immunity so she can be sued and prosecuted for her unethical behavior in running a campaign on the theory of getting Trump. I wrote a book called Get Trump. I didn't know that title. That title came from her campaign. She promised that she would get Trump. She failed. The American people spoke. They said, we'll get Trump. We'll make him president, and you can't touch him. And I think that's the result that the American people voted for.
Dersh.substack.com. Get all of his books right now. It's Professor Alan Dershowitz. Maybe 20 seconds on this. The New York Court of Appeals appears that they might even sanction her office for how ridiculous that case was. How does that get resolved?
Well, I hope they sanction her. I hope a bar association looks into it. But remember, the 65 Project, which is a group of left-wing lawyers, are still going after lawyers all over the country who defended Trump, including me. And they brought a charge against me in front of the Mass bar. It's outrageous. And it's McCarthyism. And of course, we're all fighting back and will prevail. But it costs tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself. And the 65 Project said our goal is to discourage lawyers from defending Trump. So they're going to remain active in their lawfare, even if it doesn't come from the top. This 65 Project should be investigated by Congress, and I hope they'll do it.
We agree. Thank you for your time. It's always an honor to have you on. It's Professor Alan Dershowitz. Thank you, Professor. Appreciate you.
My honor. Thank you.
All right, brother. We're back after this. Stay right here.